Okay. I was asked about the difference between gnomes and halflings, and then I had to spend 3 days doing research because finding this shit out is so fucking difficult. So for a gnome, their proportions, like their head, like, you know how I gave you guys the measurement of a dwarf is like 4 or 5 heads high or something like that? Gnomes are the same. Gnomes have really big heads, but their body, like their legs and their torso, about the same length. But like their heads are really big, so they look kind of silly, and they have really long ears. Their hair looks like they stuck their finger in a light bulb socket. It kind of just sticks out everywhere, and they can have facial hair, whereas halflings don't, generally speaking. Obviously, people can do whatever the fuck they want with their character. The feet and the hands on the gnome are also small. So with them, I think more of like a skewed proportion of like a dwarf, just with shorter torsos and longer legs and skinnier stature, essentially. So the reason I gave them such long ears is because I read somewhere, I forget if it was a blog or in the player's manual, is that they have connections to the Feywild, so they're more like, I would say they're like more sprite-like, more like exaggerated features and stuff like that. So that to me was really interesting. And then what else is different about them? I think that's it. But like, generally speaking, both gnomes and halflings are like 40 pounds and are like 3 feet high. So just remember when you're putting them next to like larger characters that they're roughly going to be at about crotch height. So like they're tiny. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the gnome. And then the halflings have proportions like a human, except for their feet. Now, for me, when I think halfling, I always think the big fuzzy feet because I grew up watching Lord of the fucking Rings. So I always put the big fuzzy feet on them. That's how I know a halfling. Now, in the player's manual, it specified that their ears can be pointy and rounded. I put round ears on this particular halfling, but I generally like to use like the smaller pointed ears like you would find on, say, like a half elf. So that I will probably change, but like just for this demo we used round ears. Halflings they're about the same proportions as a human, but they stand 3 feet tall is essentially one thing, and then their feet are really big and hairy. So compared to gnomes, halflings will look thicker. There are 2 different types of halflings. I forget the name of them. I want to say one's Longfellow, but I think I'm going to be wrong, so I'm not going to pronounce it. I just forget. I didn't write it down. But like the one is more like stout and like a larger, kind of more jovial, what you would think of hobbits as. And then the other one's more like kind of athletic, slighter. So this is kind of a half between. I think of them as more like sturdier characters than a gnome. But again, it's your character. You do what you want with it. Yeah, so that's kind of like where you find the differences is halflings will stand about 6 heads high, whereas gnomes only stand about 4 heads high because their head is larger than, it's a little exaggerated larger. And the exaggeration on the halfling will be the halfling's feet because, big hairy feet. They have the feet size of a man, but the body size of a child. But yeah, like, generally speaking, they don't have facial hair, but that again is more character preference. But if you can just kind of keep like the feet and like the thickness down, and then the proportions like of how many heads high they are, you're gonna be okay. Yeah, I hope this helped. If you have any questions, let me know. Yeah, here I am counting heads. This guy's like 4. Anyway, so if there's any questions, let me know. If you want me to break down any other characters, let me know in the comments. You guys know how it works. It's not hard. Anyways, I will chatter at you later, and I'll hopefully have a video for Saturday. Bye.